All right, public speaking tip number 12. That's 10, 11, 12. Public speaking tip number 12. Segues and transitions. Learn the segues and transitions. Now, this is a good one because I'm talking about segues. And I'm not talking about that little machine that the mall cop is riding around. That little Segway machine. You've probably seen it. That one. He stands up on it. Not that Segway. We're talking about the different Segway. This Segway is the Segue. Segue. Segues and transitions. Segues and transitions are extremely important in public speaking and presentations. Let's say we'll make it simple. We'll go back with the bus analogy we've been using for the last couple of videos. I love the bus analogy. I don't care what. I love the bus analogy. It's awesome. It's an awesome analogy because on the bus trip, we started at point number A or point A, and we started at point A and we transitioned all the way over to point B. But if you've ever ridden a bus, and I used to ride the bus when I was a young kid. When I was a young kid, we used to ride a yellow bus. It was probably about just as yellow as the book. We used to ride the yellow school bus. And the bus never picked up at our stop and went directly to school. The bus would always transition. It would always stop at the next stop, pick up some more students, go to the next stop, pick up some more students, go to the next stop, pick up some next students. And it seemed like in between, at every stop, the bus driver would either slam on the brakes, hit a big bump so that we're all over the place. It was rough. It was a rough transition from point A to point B to C and D. Rough ride. When you're in public speaking and you're giving your presentation, you're going to tell a few stories. You're going to share a few points. You're going to give some facts, figures, quotes, anecdotes. You're going to show your visual aids and stuff like that. And it can either be very smooth or very rough. You see, let's say, for instance, that you just made your first point. Your first point was that you have to know what you're going to talk about and why. And you share that with the audience. But now you need to wrap that up. You need to close the door and get on to the next point. How smoothly can you do that? You see, if you do it so smooth that the audience, they don't feel the transition from this point to the next point. So point number one was decide what you're going to talk about and why, or something to that effect. And the next point is write your opening and your close. We want to take them from point A to point B so smooth that they barely even knew that they were moving. And after they write their transition or their opening and their closing, we're going to talk about adding a few facts, figures, quotes, and anecdotes before we get to the end. And if we can transition throughout our presentation from point number 1 to point number 2 to point number 3 and point number 4, and make it smooth so that the audience feel like we're taking them on a nice continuous journey of progression, building from point A to point B to C, D, all the way till we get to success. Can we do that smoothly? You see, sometimes people will share their stories or their presentation and they'll stop at point A and they'll make a random break, kind of like that bus driver, shaking everyone out of their seats, pull off extremely fast and go to the next point and stop again. And before you know it, someone in the audience is falling off the bus. They're missing, they're losing steps, and they're trying to wonder, how do we get from there to here? Maybe you've heard someone speak before, and in the course of their presentation, you started to wonder, hey, how do we get from here to there? Yeah, it happens. And what happens is if your audience, if they're listening and they're thinking in their head, they're trying to think about how do we get here? What's going to happen is, as a public speaker, you're not driving a bus, but as a public speaker, you're giving out information. And if they're thinking here and not following your presentation, you've got a problem. Because you just lost someone. And as a public speaker, we don't want to lose anyone. So it's extremely important that we go from point A to point B and we hit all the stops in between as smoothly as possible. Those are our transitions, and there are segues. Now, some of you, you are probably going to be talking. You'll probably give a long presentation that has different segments, segment A to B to C. You see, recently, my wife and I were sitting down. We watched an awards show. And on the awards show, in between each award, they had a speaker come out. They had a beautiful lady or a handsome fellow come out on stage, and they read something and they did something. They gave what we call a segue speech. It's a smooth transition from one award to the next award, or from one segment to the next segment. And it all ties in smoothly. It feels very conversational. It feels as if they're talking you on a conversational journey. They're entertaining you, and they're helping you to forget about point number 1. And they're slowly opening the door to point number 2. And before you know it, the show's over, you enjoyed it, and it was an awesome ride. Full of nice transitions, segue speeches in between that were relevant, that were fun, that helped you to know, like, and trust the audience. They gave you an opportunity to think, relax, laugh, and then refocus. That's what you want to do in your segues and your transitions. Give the audience an opportunity to relax, exhale. Wow, that's good. And then take them for the rest of the journey. You do that, and we're going to get good. That's public speaking tip number 12. Public speaking tip number 12. Segues and transitions. I know you love it. I know you love it. Listen, join me on the next session. It's just going to get better. It's going to get better because I think it's time for number 13. I think number 13, we're going to talk about... What are we talking about for 13? What? Oh, 13, we're going to talk about the basic purpose of the speech or presentation. So for 13, we're going to talk about the basic purpose of your speech or presentation. You haven't heard this yet. There's only 4 reasons that we speak. Inform, entertain, inspire, or persuade. Which one are you going to do? Let's talk about that on the next session. Hey, do what you're going to do now. Figure out those transitions. Work on your transitions. That was number 12. Number 12. I'll see you at number 13.